You know?
What do you have what about pivots? You got a lot of pivots out there?
Not where I'm at. You get about 2 hours west of us. There's a few more, and then you got to go north up into Nebraska, and then south, kind of down by the big river down there. They have more pivots, but there's not a whole lot around where we're from.
Right.
Not a
Steve
lot of
must.
irrigation at all.
Yeah.
Because I think it's because our water table is really deep or something, and
Okay.
I think that's a big reason is I can't go that far down into the water table. I think.
Right. Yeah, we don't have a whole lot here either, at all. But it's weird. Then you go up north, like Vermont, New Hampshire, they have them. I actually saw some in Rhode Island last weekend, but they're few and far between.
Yeah. Yeah, we're pretty dry out here, especially right now. We had some decent rains here this spring, but it's been I think the most we've got is I think all in total maybe 2.5 inches.
Come get it from us, dude. We probably got 2.5 inches today.
Really?
It's been a really wet spring, like wettest one I can remember in a handful of years, anyways.
Handful.
Wow.
The worst spring that we've ever had is right now. It's disgusting how bad it actually is.
Dang.
So
Well, you guys want it to go away, and we want it.
you can have it. You can have it. It's bad here. It's crazy how much rain we've actually gotten here. So
Yeah, I'm hoping that we get a lot more because I don't want to fight EHD like we kind of fought that last year, and I don't want to do that again.
is that a big thing and a big factor with it being so dry?
It never was, or at least I wasn't aware of the problem until last year. I guess the year before it was a problem, but I didn't see it on my farms. But I had a really big one. I mean, he was going to push that 200 mark last year, and I think it was early July. The landowner called me and said, "Hey, there's a really big deer in the pond out here. You should come look at it." And sure enough, it was him. And I had the biologist come out and look at it, and he confirmed that it was an EHD kill.
Oh, does EHD like is it more prevalent when it's drier?
Yeah, because they're saying I can't remember if it's the midge fly or what or it's some kind of fly that like lays their larvae in the mud. As your ponds kind of go down and there's mud all around the pond, they lay their larvae in there, and then they get into the deer's hooves or whatever when they go to drink, and then it eventually gets to them. And from what I know is that they run a really high fever, and it actually like cooks their brain, and that's why you always find them dead in a pond.
I didn't know it was the hoof. I thought it went up their nose.
That might be it too.
No, I probably don't know what I'm talking about. I'll be honest with you.
I'm not telling you I know 100% what I'm talking about either. Because like I said, we've never really had much of a problem, so I've never looked into it a lot. So
yeah, we don't have a Jamie to fact check us. You know what I mean? We can just make shit up, and people think we're smart.
Yeah, right. Let's get Mark Drury on here and see what he says.
Well, now that now you're saying it, I did see a clip of him talking the other day. And I don't remember if he said it was a 100-year drought or a 100-year wet season. I think it must have been drought. And because he's an absolute freak when it comes to that stuff. And he looked at historical weather patterns, and I guess you guys had some kind of really, really bad drought. I want to say it was every 36 years or something like that, on the dot. And this year coming up is going to hit on that number. So him being him, he was preparing everything for drought, be drought protectant, so it wouldn't hit him as hard and all that stuff. But it was really interesting to go back 200 years to see what years, when you're due for another bad year of drought.
Yeah, for sure, man. But I mean, I don't know how much there is you can do about it, unless you have access to millions of gallons of free water or whatever to be putting into your ponds or if you're putting water tanks out everywhere. I guess I don't know, but to combat that here would be pretty much an act of God.
Yeah, but I don't even know if that would help because, all right, so you put a water tank out, it would give the deer access to water, but the natural water's still gonna be low, and you're still gonna have that exposed mud and the midge or whatever it is.
Yeah, and they're going to go drink at that pond. I mean, there's no way to keep unless you put a fence around it, I guess. But I mean, heck, then they might just move 2 miles to the next one. I mean, I think you'd just be kind of chasing your tail
Right.
because eventually maybe they'll just move out of the area completely because they won't have access to that water.
So there's really no control at that point, right? I
It's
mean,
tough.
No, you just got to pray a lot, do a rain dance, I guess, out in the yard.
that would be the only preparation you could do.
Somebody
Yeah.
around here needs to stop dancing because we have enough.
You guys got a lot of people dancing, sounds like.
Yeah.
Man, why don't we put this thing right in 4-wheel drive? Speaking of mud and rain and all that good stuff, why don't you tell everybody who you are, where you're from, and a little bit about what you do, John?
Okay, so my name is Jon Landwehr. I am from what I call the Golden State of Kansas. That's where everybody wants to come hunt because I don't know how many Boone and Crockett deer come out of the state every year, but there's a ton. We are very blessed with good genetics. We have food year round, so that helps a lot. I've been hunting. Well, I guess we can just kind of start from, where I started, I guess. I started hunting basically when I was really heavy into deer hunting when I was about 13. Killed a really nice 150 class 8-pointer with a muzzleloader my first year. So that really kind of sparked the fire in me. And then the next year, when I was 14, I shot my first one with a bow. He's a high 140s class with a bow. That was actually a cool hunt, though. I shot him on the ground at like 40 yards. It just happened so perfect. I don't even know how I made it happen, but I did. I was just sitting on a fence line behind some tumbleweeds, and this buck come walking by with a doe, and I shot him. So, that's kind of what really got started. After that, I've shot some does with a gun since then, but from the time I was like 14 years old on, I've always just hunted with a bow. So that's just kind of where my passion's always been. You don't always kill one with a bow. I mean, I'm sure you guys have been there too. There's years that it's really tough. I had one of those this last year. So I think last year was the first year I haven't killed one with a bow for, I think, like 13 years or something. So it's been a while, but yeah.
That's crazy. So when you picked up the bow and you shot your first one, that must have came with a lucky horseshoe or something. That's how that all came in about.
Yeah, basically. I mean, I wasn't a good hunter at that time. It was the rut. A doe brought him by, and I just happened to be in the right place, right time, and it just all worked out.
That's crazy. So you weren't originally from Kansas.
No, that is right. I was born in Nebraska, in Kearney, Nebraska, and my family moved down here to be on the family farm when I was 13.
So you have a family farm that what was generations of farming?
Yeah. Yep.
What kind of
But
crop?
at the time we had moved down here though. There was my grandparents kind of rented the farm ground out, so we didn't actually farm it. We just kind of lived on the homestead.
Oh, that's crazy. Now you farm it or
No, I do not. That farm got sold I mean, there's a lot to that story, but that farm got sold a long time ago, probably 20 some years ago.
oh, do you still hunt that farm or no?
No, I do not. Yeah, it's way out west. It's about 2 hours west of here.
Wow. So
Yeah.
where did it kick off for you to be chasing big whitetails and really like have that bug and wanna really get after it?
So I kind of broke that. Oh, what age was like? So it's always just kind of been whatever decent buck comes by, I'm gonna shoot him. And it wasn't until a year I actually killed the deer's right up here behind me. I killed a good 150 class 9-pointer, big heavy old deer, heavy horn deer, and that was the first year I decided, okay, I'm not shooting anything unless it's mature. So I killed that deer. It took a lot of work. You guys know how this all goes. It's just hunting a mature whitetail over good 130 3-year-old is a total different ball game. So it takes a lot of scouting and a lot of patience and hard work to get it done. And then so I shot that deer, and I think there was like a 3 or 4 year gap in there where I didn't kill a deer. I struggled, and finally coming to the realization that a lot of these, actually every buck, not even just a lot of them, every buck has a totally different personality. What works to kill this deer is not going to work to kill this deer. What this deer's patterns are totally opposite from this other deer. So figuring out those few years, and then finally getting back to where I could start killing deer again, and from there it's just skyrocketed.
What do you think that has kind of changed that for you as far as like understanding different deer, like to make you successful to put you into that ring?
Oh man, the biggest thing is just kind of studying deer behavior, I guess. Knowing what deer do at certain times of the year, what they do in the spring is totally different from what they do in the fall. So over the years, just tracking all those patterns, not specifically to the one deer, but like the whole deer herd. In the spring, summer, they're foraging, they're eating grasses, they're in the green wheat. And then once they make from that transition, once the wheat turns to where it's ready to cut, then they transition over to the soybeans. Then they transition over to the milo. And then, when the milo comes out, it's rut, and then everything's out the window. But it's just kind of learning those patterns over the years and knowing, which areas are going to have the genetics of the deer you want to chase in the age class, and just kind of manifesting all that together.
So you have to, when you have a target buck, you pretty much almost have to locate and relocate that deer 3 or 4 times from, say, spring to rut.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Now,
there was one I chased 2 years ago. Megatron, actually, he's right here. I had him at first 6 miles away from where I ended up killing him. So if that tells you how fast their range is, yeah, that's a really tough thing to do. But keeping tabs on him, I don't know how many gallons of gas I burn every year, but it's a lot.
So when you first picked them up, you picked them up early season on wheat?
Yeah. Yep.
And then you killed them where? Closer to Milo, 6 miles away?
No, I ended up killing him just before Thanksgiving. So we were kind of getting into the tail end of the rut, and I had to concentrate basically on where the biggest amount of does were, because he was bouncing around from doe to doe, and that's where I ended up having to be. It's just where the majority of the does were, and that's how I got him.
And what does it take? Like what are you doing now as that preparation starts to try and find those deer and like make sure that you're ready to chase that one deer?
So right now it's like you can't really tell a whole lot. They're this far off their head unless you know certain markings like a double throw patch or whatever to know which deer you're looking at from last year. Is kind of tough right now. But here in probably the next 3 weeks to a month, it's going to be, okay, this deer is going to be a big deer, or, this buck now showed back up. So you're going to know where he's at now. And then basically what I'm going to do is going to find, first and foremost, the closest water source, because they have to drink. So wherever the closest water source is, and then you go from there and you go to where the next step is to where the milo field is going to be at in September, because he's going to move to that milo field. So just finding the 2 closest things, water and the milo. And then the next step is, if I don't have permission on this place, getting permission on this place. Now, if you can't get permission on that, but you can get permission on the stuff next door to the milo field, okay, now we got to figure out if he's living in the milo or if he's coming like off a CRP field or something on the neighbors. So there's a lot that goes into the whole formula of it. I mean, for the last 5 years, we've hunted a 200-inch deer. It's just getting them killed is the next biggest thing. Okay, I know where he's at, but I can't get him killed because he's living on the neighbors and he's not coming over onto me. Like, there's been times I'm literally sitting on the fence line and watching this deer 200 yards away and can't do anything about it. Yeah, it's just the way it is.
That has to be the most mind-boggling thing in the world.
Yeah.
Like, he's at your fingertips, and you just cannot touch him. No.
And I mean, yeah, could you do some illegal stuff and have a muzzleloader up on that fence line and shoot him? Oh, absolutely. But, and it's so I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. It's tempting. Even for me, it is very tempting to do it. Blake had one on the scope. This was 2 or 3 years ago. He had big split twos, split brows. I mean, this deer was 200. There was no questions asked. there's a bunch of does out in the wheat field out in front of us, some little bucks, and I'm like, this sucker's gonna hop the fence and he's gonna blast this thing. I mean, this was in rifle season in December. But this deer's done. That deer acted like he was gonna jump the fence 3 times, but never would do it, and ended up walking the fence line up over the hill and gone. It's like, oh Lord, it never saw the deer again.
Why do you think he didn't? Is it just didn't want to come out in the open? Is this that smart, or just knew something was up, or just deer being? Sometimes they just do shit and you don't even know why they do it.
Yeah, I think it's just he did something and had no idea why he did it. But I do think too sometimes these deer do have a sixth sense or something that just tells them, I'm not gonna jump that fence. Oh no, because there were several times he'd like go to jump it and would just stop, and then he'd look around and he'd walk a little ways and then he'd back up, act like he was gonna jump and stop. And I'm like, oh, like if there was ever a time to pray to God, right then was the time. It's like, please God, just let this sucker jump the fence, and he just would not do it.
Does acting like he's gonna jump the fence actually like isn't that like 9/10 of the law? No, like he was gonna.
He was yeah. And as soon as he made that initial, put it in his chest.
If you watch his muscles, he was actually over the fence in his mind. So
his nose was this far over that fence.
He identified as a fence
jumper.
He identified as a fence jumper.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah, it gets very frustrating.
Eric Nelson texted me. He said he did a study on EHD back in college. They target areas where there isn't a lot of fur, like ankles, mouth, around the eyes. So,
okay,
that's where it comes from.
That's our Jamie the Fire. Yeah. We appreciate you. No,
ankles, mouth, and around the eyes. Okay, huh.
So what is some of the difficult? I mean, I bet you a lot of the difficulties, obviously, because like we come from 2 different areas, right? Like we live in the mountains, we live in the trees. There's not a lot of agriculture, very minimal.
We don't know what Milo is.
We don't have Milo. If somebody's got soybeans, every deer within 350 miles is in that soybean. So that's a true known fact. But for being in Kansas, what is some of the hardest things about hunting in Kansas? Because like, dude, there's not a lot of trees. Like, what are you trying to do? Like, how do you pattern those deer from moving from place to place? It's really the food.
Yeah, the food is number one factor. Second one is spotting scope. Like I have a really good spotting scope, and you literally have to watch these deer from miles away and just see what they're doing. And the thing that makes it the absolute hardest to kill these deer, I probably could have killed. I know I could have killed every one of these deer. The hardest number one thing is permission. There's so many out-of-state guys that are buying up land, that are leasing up land, everything. That is probably the number one factor to killing them, is because it's very hard to get permission these days. And I have several farmers that I work for on the side to gain permission. And some of them even let me plant food plots and stuff on their farms to kind of keep the deer where I want them. But that is definitely the number one hurdle. Even out here where there's not a lot of trees or whatever, you'd be surprised on how much is leased up or bought.
Wow. That's crazy.
Do you get a lot of...
Yeah.
When you're doing that road scout with the spotting scope, do you get a lot of pressure? Like, do you ever work, like if you're sitting on the side of the road for an hour with the spotting scope out, do you get a lot of people buzzing you and like kind of stalking you out and wondering why you're sitting on the side of the road for so long with spotting scope out the window?
So the one thing that I've had to do is change up tactics. I can no longer drive my big lifted truck because everybody knows who it is. And I have had people, literally stalk me. It's like, I know that truck. Why? I know the only reason that truck's sitting there is a big deer around here. So I've literally had to start driving our little Chevy Equinox around. And if I see a truck coming down the road or something, I grab that spot and scope off, throw it in the passenger seat and start driving. Because, yeah, it is a thing. Like, people are like, okay, I know why that truck's there. And then somebody starts to try to get permission around there and get me kicked off.
Right.
That is.
Yeah, it's tough.
That's kind of.
Yeah, because sometimes, like, you hit the nail on the head. People start recognizing your truck, and they know who it is, and there's a reason why you would be there. But, like, sometimes I even worry about they might not even know it's me, but they might just they start seeing the same truck night after night or multiple times a week, and then they start getting nosy or start getting curious, and then they start, prodding around and all that stuff.
Yeah. I've had them call the landowner before and say, hey, this vehicle keeps sitting over there. What are they doing? Oh, well, I gave him permission to hunt. Oh, okay. Well, is there any way I can get permission to hunt that too? How much is it going to cost? But seriously, come on. Yeah, it's cutthroat. It is cutthroat.
I mean, I guess it's kind of to be honest, it's kind of the same type of thing up here. I mean, we don't really chase too much private because it's tough because, I mean, the factors that we have is it's very, very diverse in the fact of a lot of people are against hunting. It's kind of a known thing. Like, it's kind of fun, and probably for you, John, like if you were to come up here and kind of see it, like we kind of hide it. Like it's kind of hidden. Like you're not really known as you try not to have stickers on the back of your truck. You try not to, and it's not because of other hunters. It's just because the anti-hunters. And like you walk into a gas station with a pair with a pair of camo pants or a camo shirt, and people's gonna look at you weird. Like, we just had it. We was out turkey hunting a couple of weeks ago, me and Steve, and we pulled up. Now, mind you, we're in public land, like to the fullest, and we're at a parking space, and a bunch of like 4 or 5 ladies walk by, and they're supposed to be wearing orange or whatever, and we're sitting in the parking spot, and I was like, oh, good morning to you, I'm nice as pie, and they're like, well, I'm not gonna be wishing you no luck, and I'm like, what? And they walked right into public and kept on going. And I'm like, all right. I says I wasn't asking for it, but have a good day. Like, what?
Good thing I wasn't basing my hood off and you telling me good luck or something. Good Lord. See, that's what's wild to me. Like if somebody out here was to show up with a PETA sticker or something on there, or be like, oh, you guys hunt or whatever, pretty sure they'd be ran out of town.
well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, we hunt in the Midwest, and that's that's a totally different thing. You go to the gas station, wear a pair of camo. 15 guys are out there. Oh, did y'all see any deer tonight? Oh, where you know what I'm saying? Like it's always a continuous conversation. Here, you like as soon as you get out of the woods, you whip your camo off and put it in your truck and put on your loafers and go to town because you're gonna.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a huge thing.
That sucks. Like you said, you almost have to try to hide it. And I think that's horrible. That's shitty.
Is. It really is a shitty feeling, honestly. And like, so the other thing too, when it's starting to gain permission, and we understand your pain because you go to knock on someone's door and they're like, "You hunt? You can't come hunting here." Like that's like, ew, why would you kill all those animals? Like that's the feedback that we get. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Out here, guys are like, yeah, they're like ruining my crops. If you kill one, you have to kill 5. that's basically where they're at. Because there's like some hunters or farmers that I don't, have permission on. But if I call them up and say, hey, I got a deer over in this field, do you care if I go kill it? Well, yeah, he's in there trampling down my mile. Kill him. Okay, great. We'll do.
They probably get mad at you because you're only targeting one specific deer.
Well, and see, that's the other thing is that some of these landowners too, it's like, okay, we're going to kill 1 buck or we're going to kill 3 does. If that's the stipulation they want, then that's what we're going to do. I don't have no problem putting meat in the freezer.
Right. And they taste a lot better because they're eating Milo and all.
Absolutely.
What is Milo
absolutely? So actually, you'd be very surprised if you look it up in a lot of ingredients and a lot of the stuff that you eat, like what's the one like Nestle, the chocolate milk mix.
Nesquik.
I'm pretty sure it's in there. Yeah, Nesquik. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's in there. If you look at a lot of the ingredients, and it's called sorghum. It's not really called Milo. It's called sorghum.
That was the technical name. Okay.
Yep.
See,
so there's a grain sorghum, which is what Milo is. Come on, Blake. I thought he was better than that. So there's 2 different types. There's a grain sorghum and a forage sorghum. The grain sorghum is going to be shorter and it's going to have the bigger heads. And a forage sorghum gets like 10 feet tall and it has a very small head. It's more for like tonnage for cattle and stuff.
Now the deer will eat both, or they don't prefer the cattle one?
They don't. They don't. The only thing I like the cattle one for, really, I don't know if they eat it a whole lot, but it's cover. I mean, it's really tall, really thick. You can't see anything out of it. We actually had a buck last year. Blake was hunting him. We called him B10, and he was probably 170-inch 10-pointer, and he was living in there. And we kept trying to draw him out, but he was way too smart and wouldn't come out of that shit till dark. But yeah, so they use it a lot for cover. And then once they cut it, this is how important our crop rotations are. They're living in there. There's probably 30 or 40 deer living in this one field, and as soon as they cut it, they're gone. Like literally, they're just completely gone out of the area. Like you're not finding them.
So with the spotting scope being so valuable to you, how unvaluable are trail cameras? Like, how do you go about even using them when it's such a vast land and so much crops?
So trail cameras are still a vital part to what we do because we are a bait state. You can put bait out. Now, we don't normally hunt over bait. It's more for inventory, basically, to see what deer are out there. So we can put out corn. I've been using GB feeds for a lot of years and stuff. And then so you can take them out like from this 300-acre mile field and put it on the edge of this mile, and you can pretty much pull every buck that's in there onto that camera. Most of the time it's after dark, so you're not really going to kill them over it or anything, but you just kind of know what bucks are in the area because a lot of these fields, all the dips and stuff and the waterways, you're not going to see every buck from the road with a spotting scope. So that still plays a huge part. And then I do have most of the farms I have now, I have them set up to where I can put trail cameras out, like over scrape lines or whatever, and know how the deer move through them and still get pictures and videos and shit of them.
Do you use scrapes a lot? Like, is that like a big source for you? I know that it was, it wasn't something that you had used for a long time, but you kind of started to get into it. Have you really started to use them more to your advantage to try and kill big deer?
So I've never been able to kill one over a scrape. Over the last 5-6 years of these farms, I know what scrapes they use every year. I mean, like these scrapes are opened up every single year, and I've hung cameras over them. Not one of them I've ever seen used in the daylight. They are always after dark, and I have no idea why, but that's just what they do. Like my main farm, the one I call the Isaac farm, like there's a big scrape that opens up that's the size of a dinner table every year, but there's never a daylight picture of a buck on that, and I don't know why. I do not get it. That's just what they do.
Are those like field edge scrapes, or are they in the timber?
They're more field edge scrapes. What's crazy is a lot of these milo fields in September, they use scrapes year round, which is something I didn't know until just a few years ago. If there's one tree on that fence row on the edge of a milo field, I bet the farm that there's a scrape underneath it.
Yeah.
It's just, and it's in the most random place. It's like literally out in the middle of a 300-acre pasture where there's not a single tree, but there's a scrape right underneath that sucker. Like, what the heck?
That's like a beech tree up here. You see a beech tree, you know damn right sure that there's going to be a scrape underneath it. It doesn't matter. You check a single beech tree to see if there's a scrape underneath it. That's pretty crazy.
Wow.
Do you find that maybe there, and I don't know, just kind of talking it out, but maybe is there like more scrapes in the timber behind it that they're hitting before the sun goes down, or?
Not that I've ever found. Most of them are on the edges of the timber or on field edges. Like we have a lot of like big, thick tree rows, that have lanes through them and stuff. And very rarely will you ever find a scrape in there, like in a bedding area.
That's nuts.
Yeah, it's weird.
That is super weird, honestly, that they wouldn't hit them during the day. Especially, I don't know. That's just nuts. That's nuts to me.
Yeah, it's like they wait till they come out to the edge and then they'll go work a scrape.
I find here, I've had cameras on the same giant scrapes for multiple years, and they will hit it in the daylight very rarely and very randomly. So it's you could sit it all you want, and then that one day that you're not there, or middle of the week while you're at work, he'll randomly show up at 7:10 in the morning, and you're you can't predict it. There's no pattern or rhyme or reason to when they're going to show up in the daylight.
Yeah. Nope. And I've tried to go off of this. My buddy Tyler Wilbur kind of taught me this a little bit about like historical data. You know, this buck will come through on November 4th, you know, every year, you know, on at this time or like really close to it. And the thing that, and I've tried to do that, and the thing that just, that's what screws us is our crop rotations. It won't happen. I've tried to see if it'll happen and stuff, and it just won't. Like they won't be on this scrape or walking down this trail on the same day. They may walk down that trail, but it's 2 weeks after that or whatever it may be. And that's what I think it is the crop rotations are what screws us.
Yeah,
so
you
bad.
almost have to do historical data based on the crop rotation. So like every 3 years when the crop is like this, like what did he do on this date 3 years ago when this was a milo field? Because the next 3 years it won't be.
Yep.
So yeah, that's long
And
range.
at that point, that deer, you got him dead by then to try and figure out what he's doing historically 3 years prior.
Yeah. Either I killed him or the neighbor killed him already or something. It's just,
the other thing that throws me off with that too, because like I had a buck that I thought I had dialed in pretty good like that, because I started looking at old trail. Like I wouldn't know where he was all summer. Then he'd show up right before the season, and I'm like, oh, he showed up this day, 3 years ago. He showed up this day 2 years ago, like within a day or two, and then I'm like, oh, he's gonna show up any day now, and he's like, where is he? He like hasn't showed up, and he ended up being like 2 weeks late. So I threw it out the window. But then I was talking to my buddy I was talking about earlier in South Georgia. He's like, well, did you look at the moon phase? And it was like those first 3 years was like similar to the same moon phase, but we just hit a cycle where he didn't show up until the moon phase matched the 3 years prior. And I'm like, I missed that. I didn't see that coming.
Wow.
That's
crazy. Well, it's like, and what I've started to do is I've got a notebook now that these last 2 years, I've been writing down, what the day is, what the temperature is, what the pressure is, what direction the wind's blowing and stuff. And, I'll have days in there where nothing daylighted or, then 2 days later, I had shooter bucks at 6 different farms that evening on daylight, the south wind at 5 mile an hour and a temperature of 65 degrees, and a 30 on the barometric pressure, and kind of started to write those down just as we go to kind of figure out a pattern that way too.
How long have you been doing that?
About 2 years now.
Is there anything in particular that you think has like more value or less value as far as like if you itemize like barometric pressure or temperature, like is there something that seems to hit more often than the others?
The biggest thing is wind direction and speed.
Okay.
Actually, the surprise crap out of you, both 200s I've killed, it's been over 90 degrees. I don't know why. It's super hot out. It's in heckin' the first one, Titan, was in October, and it was like 93 degrees, and that's the day I killed him. He didn't move on the days it was 60 degrees. It was the hot day that he decided to get up and move. I have no idea why. Well, actually, I do know why, but it's just sometimes it's crazy. That's what I think it is. The biggest thing is wind speed and the
was there
direction
a wind shift? Like had the wind been out of a certain direction for a couple days, and then the day you killed them, it had changed?
Yeah, it had been. It had been out of the north for 2 days, and then switch came out of the south that day. But I've been writing all that down, But I haven't seen a change though. Say it does blow out of the north for 3 days, and then the first 2 days out of the south they move. It might blow out of the south for 5 days at 40 miles an hour, and they don't move. And then all of a sudden it drops to 5 to 10, and then they're up on their feet for whatever reason. Yeah, this deer out here are puzzling, dude. It's it's just when you think you got it figured out, then they throw you for a whole big loop.
I think it's the same here. It's just different factors, right? We don't have to worry about wind because we're in the timber. But if it's too hot or it's, you know what I'm saying? Like we have other factors that we deal with that are, in the same variable. Like when you think you got it figured out, they throw a curveball at you. Oh yeah, that's the thing for us too, especially on public land here. We have smaller parcels that we're hunting. So not only are you trying to kind of pattern the deer, you're trying to pattern the pressure too. The hunter, the hikers, there's a lot of things that go into this that like that might throw that curveball at you. You know, it's
Yep.
definitely it's
Well, and you guys fight thermals.
Oh yeah.
Like after talking to guys like on podcasts and on the phone stuff that live over east, they're like, "Oh yeah, you got to watch your thermals." I'm like, "What the hell are thermals?" Like out here, if the wind's blowing that direction, your scent's going that way. There's not any like very many holes that we're gonna, or a big bunch of trees that we're in. We're just gonna sit there and squirrel, or it's gonna drop in the morning, or rise as it warms up, or whatever. I'm like, what the hell are you guys talking about thermals? we don't have that problem.
It's tough.
Thermals seem like they're a real. It depends on where you're at. Can be a real pain in the ass.
Yeah, and like I think the biggest thing with thermals too that I've learned in the last couple of years is those like really big. We're hilly terrain and we're in the timber. Those really big bucks. Like when I find them, they're usually in this spot where the prevailing wind is heading one direction and the thermals are doing the opposite. So they can ride that ridge. They've got wind coming this way, thermals coming this way, and he just splits that middle. I know what he's doing. I know why he's doing it. How do I beat that? Like that's why he's doing it, because he's riding that line where it makes it very hard to slip in and get the right angle to not get busted one way or the other, which is why they're big and that's why they're there. But mother did.
Yeah, like how do you kill them? Like how do you do it?
You don't.
Hope he gets a midge stuck up his nose and does something stupid and walks by.
Right. His brain's starting to cook, or he's got 3 legs and 1 eye and deaf.
So to answer your question, the way to do it is a wind switch, is one of the things, because if, say, that wind is going to switch midday or whatever, or when that deer's going to move, or it's just shit luck, and you just hope that you just ride it anyways and just hope that he don't care, or he comes to do what you want him to do. Like
the way to do it is wait till the November 7th when he gets real stupid.
And the wind.
Yeah, when he throws all caution to the wind.
His wind's into the wind is in his face, but he's chasing the wrong tail, and it doesn't matter, and it just is what it is.
Absolutely.
It's that's, I guess that's the fun part of whitetails. But when it comes together, dude, it's the greatest thing in the world. And then you think you're a rocket scientist until the next deer comes in and he's got a different attitude. Like, and you know that. So
yeah, like I said, they all have different personalities. Not one of them does the same thing as the other.
I was thinking about that earlier when you said that. Have you ever? This might sound crazy, but like, have you ever like figured out a deer's personality before you it attributed to knowing how you were gonna kill him? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So Titan would have been that 200 I killed back in 2020. I finally figured out what his pattern was. I would go in there, and I did actually kill this deer over.
Why don't you tell the whole story, because that's a good story. Just start it from the beginning and then inquire why.
So I found this deer in July. This was the biggest deer I've ever. I had a carpool camera out on this deer, and I've got pictures of this deer, and this deer's just got shit going everywhere. I mean, absolute biggest deer I've ever seen. I had a trail camera picture of at least in my entire life. This was in July, and I'm thinking, holy shit! Like I'm gonna have to really step my game up now to kill this deer. And so that was the first time I ever bought cell cameras. I bought the Tacticams and stuff because I'm like, I'm gonna put these out so I'm never, at least feet on the ground, putting my center around or whatever. So I get pictures of him in July, and I'm like, oh, I'm doing everything right. I never get another picture of this deer. Like, gone. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, did I go in there the next time and screw it all up? And I pulled what happened? What happened? And I literally every morning, as soon as I roll out of bed, I pick up my phone and I'm scrolling through pictures. I'm like, okay, is he there? Is he there? Is he there? Nothing. Finally, on October 4th, I'm scrolling, and it was the very first picture. Boom, there he is, standing right there. I literally fell out of my bed, and I'm like, holy fucking shit! Holy shit! I was like, what's wrong? I was like, he's there! He's there! I mean, I flipped out, dude. And I couldn't believe it. Like, why all of a sudden did he show up? That whatever battlefield he was in, did he get cut and then he moved back in? I don't know. So So I'm trying to figure out this deer, and he'll daylight 2 nights, and then he goes back nocturnal for 3 or 4 days, whatever. And I'm like, what? Like, he'll daylight even if it's hot, but he doesn't daylight all the time. Like, I'll go in there, sit, not see him. But what the hell's going on? And I finally figured it out. I went back and started looking at dates, and I'm like, that's the day I put out corn. That's the day I put out corn. That's the day I put out corn. Holy shit. Every day I drive in there with my truck and dump corn out, he daylights.
That's crazy.
No way. No freaking way. So I told my boss, we were actually cutting Milo at the time, and I told him, I said, hey, can I leave early tomorrow? Because I'm going to go kill this deer. He's like, oh, you think you are, huh? Okay, all right. He's like, yeah, that's fine. I'll have another truck driver come out, and you can go hunt. So that next morning, I drove out there with my truck with I don't even know, 12 buckets of corn or some shit. And I dumped corn out all over the ground, dude. And I closed the tailgate on my truck, and I'm literally spinning kitties out in the field, just whoa, 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 just wrapping my truck up and shit. And I killed him that night, 2 hours before dark.
That's wild.
Was it just a dinner bell when he heard my truck, or what? What the heck was the deal?
Now, typically when you dump corn, how long will that last before it's licked clean?
It really depends on what how many deer you have in that herd there. That year was probably the most deer that we had. Actually, that was the second year I hunted that property. So we had 30 to 40 resident deer on this literally quarter of ground, 160 acres. There was a lot of deer in there. So if you dump 10 buckets of corn out, it's probably going to last you 10 days, 10, 14 days maybe. But then as our population, CWD, we've been in hit hard, EHD, we've had some hits there too. Our population's way down. So if I fill a 350-pound feeder, it might last for 2 to 3 weeks now. It really depends on how many deer are in the area. And the other thing is too, what other food sources are around that they're hitting as well. If there's not much of a food source around there, it's we move into November or whatever, and that's their main food source, it'll get hit harder.
So you think, that's crazy that he had that type of attitude. And to be honest, to be able to kill that big of a deer over a bait pile in daylight, that's not a very typical thing, because you hear a lot of people that talk about baiting deer, and literally the biggest thing that they say is you will not kill a big deer over bait.
Very, very rare. And the other crazy thing is that you could see this. It was literally, there was one cottonwood tree out in the middle of the field, and he was coming from the timber and all the big tall grasses from there, walking across an open field. You could see all of this from the road. If you drove by at that moment, you could have seen that deer standing there, plain as day, 300 yards off the road, right there. And he just walks out into the open. And this was a 7.5-year-old buck. Why he was doing it, I was maybe he did have something wrong with his brain. Hell, I don't know.
It's also wild, a buck like that, of that age, you killed them over corn in the daylight on the day you bait. You'd think 2-3 days after he'd show up, 2-3 days after he showed up, but no, he was showing up every day that you freshened it up, hours after you left.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing, think about this. If that deer's 7.5 years old, right? And every time that somebody baited, if he had those, if that bait had left so fast, he knew that he had to be there to get to that bait once that bait fell. And also, he potentially could have had some bad occurrence with the bait after the first day. You know what I'm saying? So when that bait went down, that potentially in his mind, okay, bad things have happened, day 2, day 3, day 4, I have to be there, be able to get that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
if somebody shot at him or somebody hit him and wounded him or something,
or he was the king ding-a-ling and he just didn't care and he's just doing whatever he wanted.
He said, "No one ever hunts the day they bait. they always bait. They always bait Wednesday and come hunt Saturday. No one ever hunts the day they bait."
Yeah, exactly. And and there's so many bucks that I won't ever get them on a bait pile ever in daylight. The one Blake just killed this last year, 196. I have not ever had a daylight picture of that deer. Not once in 3 years. Never a daylight picture. There was times it was right there, probably 10 minutes past the legal shooting light, but he would never daylight until that night he killed him. And there were so many factors, I think, that night. There was a farmer on the corner just south of us that started planting wheat. Like right when we sat down, he started planting wheat back there. And then there was another kid that was hunting that same property. He's just a young kid, doesn't really know what he's doing or whatever. And he had permission kind of on the south side of that property. Well, 20 minutes before dark, he got in his truck and you heard his truck start up and he left. So did the guy planting wheat pressure him? Did the kid walking out pressure him and make him get up because his wind was blowing right in our direction? Was that just the perfect situation to get him up on his feet and push him towards us? I think it was. Because that deer was smart. That deer was not stupid. For him to walk in, I'm like, okay, well, that's all right, kill him.
Especially to not have him really in daylight or on that fine line, like that's wild.
Yeah, and he was there, 15 minutes before legal light was over.
Remember we were talking about that prevailing wind and that thermal, and it just happens to come. That's that same situation. But you know to not hunt it, right? Like as long as you're safe, right? You're gonna go there, and hopefully he shows up early or he does what he needs to do. It's the same situation. And
yep, absolutely.
Take us through Zeus too, because was he a different type of deer with a different type of attitude?
Yeah. As much as this might come to people's surprise, I think Zeus was very stupid. I don't think he was that educated, and I did find his shed from the year before. And the way his rack was the year before, he would have been a 200 the year before. But the game warden, when he came out and looked at everything, because when you shoot a deer that big, it's like you want to squash everything. Oh, yeah, he shot that over on my property or blah, blah, whatever. Before we removed the deer, I called the game warden, had the game warden come out, look through everything to make sure everything was legit. And when he looked at his teeth, he guessed him at 4.5 years old. Yeah. I don't know if that's correct, because for that deer to be 3 years old and have a 200-inch basically a typical rack, I think that's kind of hard to believe. I could believe he was maybe 4 the year before, but I mean, I don't know. The game warden's going no more than me.
Right.
But
so I want to just time out and kind of hone in on what you just said. Did you learn that from after you shot your first 200-inch deer and had problems? Or you just knew when you're targeting a world-class whitetail like this that you need to, because you're not the only person that we've had on this podcast and had conversations with that have shot big deer and have gotten the law involved. I remember there was one in Ohio that we had on, and he had already notified the law before with trail cam pictures and the whole 9 yards of this deer to be like, hey, listen, I'm hunting this deer X, Y, and Z, and this is like, is that a normal thing when you're hunting these world-class deer?
not normally. The year before, I didn't have a bad experience with anybody to speak of. That I know of. I mean, people talk, that you just don't hear.
Haters gonna hate.
I didn't know the deer at the time when I killed him was as big as he was until we put a tape measure to him. We had him at home. He was gutted. And then we put a tape to him. I'm like, holy shit, this deer's over 200. Like, damn. Like, he just has crazy stuff going over it. He's real tight. So it's like, I didn't think he was 200 then. But I think the thing with Zeus was, as soon as when I got the first trail camera picture of him, I was thinking this deer was, he is world class, but in velvet, everything's bigger. But I was like, this deer is going to be 240s, 250s. Like, holy shit, like, this deer's huge. Like, so then I did start keeping every trail camera picture, every video, everything, every sighting that I had of him through the spot scope. I did keep track of all that, just because I knew, it was like, all right, this really is a world-class deer. I need to make sure that I have all my bases covered in case something does come out like that. Like, oh, that deer was over on my property. You must have poached it. No, we're going to squash all that shit right away. Like, I'm not having any of that. I'm not going through any legal battles or losing this deer over somebody spewing some bullshit. So that was pretty much the reason I did that.
Yeah, and I mean, the other thing, too, is that you film your hunts. So it's all documented anyways, right? I mean, like, it's...
Mm-hmm.
So that's like win-win.
Yeah. Well, those weren't.
No.
Unfortunately. I could have filmed both of those hunts easily, but I wasn't into it
Right.
yet. And then after that, you know, people were like, "Oh, you know, why aren't you filming and stuff?" I'm like, "Well, shit, yeah, I probably should be. You know, even if it's just to preserve that. I mean, that is the main reason to do it now is to preserve that memory. Like I can go back and relive it. You know, my kids can go back and relive it with me. That's the main thing. And so then after that, it's like, okay, yeah, let's start doing that. And then I did film the next year that 180. I did get him on film though.
Yeah, but still, even though to get to 180, I mean, on film is incredible. I mean, yeah, it would be nice to have 200s taped and on film,
Yeah,
but it is what it is. I mean,
yeah,
it could have been that factor and why you weren't able to shoot the deer or whatever the case may be. Like the first one when you had shot first, missed, and then had to shoot again. Like, could the camera have been in the way, or
mhm,
who knows? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's
yeah,
a
yeah,
factor to have to get with.
yeah, absolutely. And I did think about that. You know, if I would have had that camera arm on my right side like I always do now, it would have totally been in the way. Like, I don't know that I got that second shot off because that camera arm would have been right there and I would have had to sit there like a dummy, like, okay, well, I guess you're going to walk out of my life, you know, unless you're going to walk back in for some stupid reason. But yeah, that is very true.
What do you typically hunt out of a lock on, or how do you hunt usually?
Oh, we hunt. Oh, geez. We hunt out if I'm on a tree stand, my lock on is preferred method. I do have a redneck blind on a trailer that we hunt out of. We do hunt on our ground blinds, and we do a lot of spot and stock as well. So we kind of have
Everything.
a wide array. It's just kind of situational. I mean, I've hunted at a stand all morning and got out, and I'm 300 yards away from my truck, and the target's right there with the doe, like laying down. I was like, okay, I guess, you know, Indian mode we go.
Little Dave Blanton in the Milo field.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So been there more than once. I think between me and my 3 kids, I bet we've killed at least 10 of them spot and stock.
That's awesome.
That's
Yeah. I shot my 270-inch 10 pointers. I shot them both on the ground. The one was at 3 yards and the other one was at like 20.
what that
So yeah.
different adrenaline rush being one-on-one with them. Like I couldn't even imagine. Like I pray that I could do that someday, but like that's not a thing. You ain't spot and stalking here. Like,
Listen, I pray.
No,
I pray.
no.
What'd you say the second one was? 21 yards. I pray I'm 21 yards from a 170. I don't care if I'm in a tree or not. Just put one that close to me.
Well, the one at 3 yards was kind of. I had a decoy. I had a heads-up decoy on my bow, and the buck and the doe were facing the opposite way, which is what I've learned, what you always want. And I grunted at him, and he whipped his head around and saw me, and immediately stood up, bristled up, pissed off. And actually, when I shot him, he was leaning in to hit the decoy that was on the front of my bow when I let it go. And I was like, "Oh, that might have been a little late. I probably should have shot you a little further out." Yeah, if I would have had a GoPro on my head, that would have been freaking nuts. It would have been absolutely insane.
did you think to yourself like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have grunted at him when I was that close to him because he was that happened?
Well, he was like 100 yards away with that doe first, and I mean, he made it. I mean, it literally seemed like 5 seconds he was in my face. I mean, just that quick. He was that pissed off.
Wow,
Yeah, it was.
It's
Do
that
what?
effective. Like a decoy like that is that effective. It's like
If you get them in the right mood, and the number one thing is that, like, if they're bedded with like lockdown with the doe in the rut, the doe, you can't let the doe see you first. She will immediately bolt. She's like, "Oh, great, another one trying to get me." So she just takes off and takes them with her. But if you can get the buck to see you first, most of the time, they're so pissed that they're coming. That when he's on his way and then she sees you and she takes off running, he doesn't care. He's coming to kick your ass.
Yeah.
And we've killed 3 or 4.
When is this? Late October or like super early November?
It would be right around Thanksgiving. November 17th through November 24th is when it is highly, highly, highly effective. Every year, historically, that's when we kill them, is in between those dates, spot stock.
When's your rut typically?
First, second week in November.
Okay.
And it's weird. Like they will lock down when it gets to like the later part, like when it's the last available does, that's when they take them out, and you'll see them bedded right off the side of the road. I've seen them bedded in a road ditch with a doe, just standing there and watch you drive by.
That's interesting.
It's like, what the hell are you doing?
When you said lockdown, I'm thinking like
first round.
Before the first doe comes into estrus.
First round, yeah.
Not that last one.
Yeah. Yeah, it is really weird out here. That's when our lockdown is. That's when you will see them like just out in the middle of nowhere locked down with the doe. I don't know why. It's like the first part of the rut, like there's more available, maybe. I don't know. And, they're chasing a lot more. It's just when you get down to the last part of the rut, then they take them out in the middle where you can see them out in the open.
That's interesting. And then now I'm wondering if that happens here, it's just a lot harder for us to observe because it's all timber, where you can see it's a lot more exposed.
Yeah. Very well.
I want to go to the Midwest the end of November and lockdown and go shoot a 120 like that.
Yeah.
It's crazy you say that, because like you say like a 3-year-old 130, but like for us, a mature deer, if you know what I'm saying, could be 130. It's a different class or different genetics, a different, like us doing things like the deer behind Steve, like those are mature bucks here. Those are 5-6-year-old deer. Like those are mature deer. Like we just don't have I guess we don't have the feed that we have. Gotta look and see which deer is behind him.
No, I was looking at like that one particular. He's a scrub buck. I won't even put a tape on him. He ain't going 100 inches. That deer was 6 years old, and it's just like, what do you? A 6-year-old.
Well, I mean, and we have that here too.
But
if they don't have the genetics to be big, they're just not going to. Dr. Wilbur, when he was out here hunting a couple of years ago, we were after a deer that we named Floppy. We thought this deer's maybe going to go 140, but I know this deer's 8-9 years old. I mean, he's old as shit, but he never got to that trophy class.
Right.
And that's just the way some of them are. And it's like with some pockets where I find most of these 200s are within like 4 miles of the same area. For whatever reason, like that pocket just has crazy genetics. And there's pockets like off to the southwest that are scrub bucks. Like you won't find anything more than 8 points.
Right. Now, I've always said like a 6-year-old's a 6-year-old. Like it doesn't matter if he's 80 inches or 180 inches. But do you think that's still true when you start getting into like 200-inch deer? Or are they just harder to kill because you're so dialed in on just that one deer?
The biggest thing is that most of them, when they do get that big, they reach their full potential. They're that much smarter. Like I said, Zeus, he wasn't really that hard to kill. I mean, I think he was a younger deer. Whether he was 4 or he was 5, he for whatever reason, he wasn't as smart as several deer that I've 140-inch bucks that I've tried to hunt and kill and can't get it done. We had one we called the big 8 that was out of the Razzie farm. We tried to kill him for 4 years and never could get it done. He was always one step ahead of us. And then to come to find out in shed season, I figured out what he was doing the one year. I'd even drop my buddy off in the road ditch and keep the truck moving. He would bail out, and then he'd sneak down the waterway in a spot, and he'd know we were there. Well, then I found out in shed season, he was sitting up on top of the hill by a highline pole that had a bunch of weeds growing up around it, and he was watching us every single time. It's like, what the fuck? Then the last year that we actually had him on camera and saw him, he went downhill because he was getting really old, and he was with a doe, and he seen me coming down the road, and he leaves that doe and starts beeline and trying to get across the road in front of me to go back into the cover. And I'm taking a video of this on my phone, and I'm literally like, this deer has drove me freaking nuts. I mean, absolutely. I have gray hairs because of this son of a bitch. And he's running towards the road, and you can literally hear me in the video. Keep running. I'm going to run you over, motherfucker. If this deer was going to get on the road, I have a big freaking bumper and grill guard on my truck. I was literally going to hit this. I was like, I'm going to purposely run your ass over. But he did. He kind of made it. It got to the road and went back out. But I'm like, yeah, that was a smart move from you. I was like, I'm going to hit you, motherfucker.
The pain and agony. He's getting it back. I promise you that.
Yep.
You know, you'd have to.
Yeah, we've had a lot of crazy
You would
things.
have to skull cap them and mount that rack to the hood of your truck, though.
Right.
For
Absolutely. Sure. See, all of you other deer watching, this is what happens. This is what happens when you don't come out with a white flag. This is what's going to happen to you.
No, and I bet you too. Those bigger deer, obviously, the pressure is a little bit higher on them too. You know what I'm saying? Once they get to that stage, so they, they just get a little bit more pressure and a little bit smarter every single year because they made it.
Yep.
They got a big target on their head. Like that part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would have. I think it was a year. It was a year after I killed Zeus. It was just across the road from there to the east. I actually saw a deer. It was in August. I know for a fact he was bigger than what Zeus was. I know for a fact that he was bigger. And so I started calling around. Ended up getting permission on the place. So I got permission on him. Like, dude, we're good to go. Like, we're gonna go in there and kill this sucker. Like, I've been watching him. I'm gonna kill this son bitch this fall. And actually going in to hang cameras, I actually bumped him out of some tall grass right in front of me, 5 yards in front of me, and his rack just went way out, had drops coming off and everything. I'm like, holy shit. And I'm not kidding. This deer was in the 250s, 260s. Had to be. I mean, just absolute giant. So the night that I go on there and hang trail cameras, I get a phone call from this old lady's nephew. And mind you, it's all overgrown. All of the ag ground is all overgrown with grasses. You can tell no cattle been in it. Nobody's farmed it for years and years. So I'm like, that's why the sucker's here. He's never been bothered here. And that evening, I get a call from her nephew, and he's like, "Oh, did so and so give you permission to be in there?" I said, "Yeah." He's like, "Well, I rent that from her." And he's like, "And if I see anybody in there, I'm just going to start shooting with my SKS. I don't care what the fuck you're doing. I'm just going to start shooting at you." I'm like, "Whoa, bro! Like, chill out." And he was like, "I better not see you in there." And I'm like, "Well, I have cameras in there." He's like, "Oh, really? Where at?" And I was like, "Don't worry about it. I'll go in there and get them out." So literally that night in pitch black, I went and pulled all my cameras because I was like, "Dude, no deer's worth dying over." And so then I tried to get permission all around it to try to see where this deer is going, because where I had permission to where I could potentially pull the deer over, there was no crops planted there that year. So I was like, okay, he's going to move somewhere else. And dude, I tried for weeks to get permission around there and just could not get it done.
Had you seen him after that?
Yeah, I did. I saw him, I think, 2 times after that, right before they shed velvet. And that's what the other crazy thing is that when they shed velvet, it's like that's when they moved to the Milo. And I searched all the Milo fields within 5 miles of there, just could not find him.
He never showed up dead anywhere?
Nope. And nobody killed him that I know of.
Wow. And so the kid that had called you, was he hunting in there, or he just rented it and didn't want it?
No. Yeah, he never does anything with it. That's what I didn't get. And when I talked to the older lady later on, she was like, "Well, he doesn't pay me anything for it or whatever. And there's no agreement." I was like, "Then how is he saying that he hasn't rented? You're giving me permission to go." She's like, "Well, it's probably best that you just don't go in there. I don't want to piss him off." Shit. Okay. Yeah, it's crazy.
That's wild. Well, maybe he was growing something he shouldn't have been in there or something. I don't know.
It could have been. Could have been cooking something or grilling something, one or the other.
He had a fort in there, a tree fort. Yep.
Fucking old boy killed the 250 with an SKS and nobody knows about it.
It's hanging in his barn.
He used the antler as a spoon to cook his meth. No.
Yeah, it's probably cooking meth inside his skull or something weird.
Oh, that's wild.
Smoking EHD.
Different high, guys. It's different high.
Jon, we really appreciate you jumping on with us here, man. But before we cut you loose, why don't you tell everybody what drives you outdoors?
Oh man, gotta be my family. My kids and stuff are probably the biggest drive. Blake is now 13 years old, and I think he's getting more ate up with it than I am. And dude, seeing him succeed, it's probably going to be my biggest drive, dude. This, I don't know if you guys know the whole story, but this last year when he shot that big one, is a very unfortunate ending. We didn't find the deer till January, and come to find out the deer was only 40 yards from where he shot him. We just didn't look over there, didn't find any blood. And so that was a very unfortunate ending. So I kind of feel like it breaks my heart because I feel like I robbed him of that just because we didn't go back and look the next day. I was like, oh, you would have had your hero moment, with this giant deer, and it's my fault you didn't get that. He tells me every day it's not my fault, but being a parent, you do feel like it's your fault. But now that we have him, though, that story's closed. He's got him. He's on the wall. Really makes me feel a lot better. But yeah, he's definitely probably my biggest drive, dude. And my wife, the way that she supports me and all this, I'm sure you guys probably know this too. If you don't have a supportive spouse, there's not much. I don't think that you can really do it.
Our boys that working class bow hunters say you can't kill big bucks if you don't. If your wife you can't kill big bucks if your wife sucks. I mean, that's just the way that it goes.
Absolutely. When your wife's nagging at you to be home all the time, it puts a hinder on it. And especially, these last few years filming, and now this year being with Midwest Whitetail, she's just always like my driving force to like chase your dreams and do what you love to do. So that's a huge part of it.
Jon, can you tell everyone where they can find you if they want to follow along with what you got going on this season, or maybe some, check out some of the old stories or videos or whatever you got going on, Jon?
Yeah, I do have a YouTube channel. You just look me up, Jon Landwehr. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram, Jon Landwehr 88 on Instagram. And hoping this fall turns out really good and you can start finding some of it on the Midwest Whitetail channel. Hopefully Chasing November. Hopefully there's a 200 on Chasing November everybody can watch.
Hopefully. Hey, another 200. This time we're going to get it on film. Third time's the lucky charm, right, Jon?
Damn right it is, bud.
Well, we really appreciate it, man. And thanks for taking the time with us. And we really appreciate all the listeners jumping on here and taking the ride with us right here on the Outdoor Drive.